Welcome to the Hellas Chrome podcast and live stream. I'm your host, Andrew Dyer. We were off last week. There was something going on last Tuesday. Can't recall, but we took the week off. And now we're back to bring you the latest in SDFC supporter news. We are mid-November technically right now, and a lot of things continue to roll on. We do have the union president, John Cross, also the producer and co-host of this very program. John, how are you?
Actually, getting better, doing better. The last time we spoke, I had mentioned, as I have still on my tag underneath my name there, the outgoing union president. I'd take a step back because it was just becoming too much work and everything, and with my health and other things. So it's been a rough couple of weeks, but I'm getting better mentally. Certainly a lot better. Physically, still trying to catch up. My body still, my post-COVID self is doesn't react as well as my pre-COVID self, but my brain keeps thinking I can do all the pre-COVID things that I used to do, but I can't.
That's really too bad. We were off last week. I don't know if you were busy participating in democracy or whatnot, but how was your election?
That is a loaded question. Um, I'll say I participated in the election, and I will be participating in lots of things moving forward as well. Um, I don't know. I don't think it's probably too far off for anybody to guess where my political leanings are, and
Hey, your guy won.
can't. Well, yeah,
Congratulations.
right. um, yeah. I wish I. Well, actually, in this election, I don't wish I could ever say that phrase, but um, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting 4 years.
It's so wild, whenever it was clear what the result was going to be, like even if you just throw out like partisanship or like what you wanted to happen or whatever, like it is crazy to like look back at January 6th, 2021 and like put yourself in that moment and imagine Donald Trump even being allowed to run for president again, let alone winning re-election 4 years after the fact. It just like the thing that I can't get over is like um, all of the week of like like vomiting and picking through your vomit and deciding which thing that you ate is the thing that caused you to throw up, right? Like we've had a week of this crap, right? You know,
Right.
Kamala was too woke, or it was the Palestine-Israel thing in Michigan, like all of this stuff, right? Like, and like, it's so crazy to me the things that matter and the things that don't matter, right? Things that don't matter or that didn't matter, the attempt to steal the election, the attempt to have a coup, the attempt to, storm the Capitol, um, didn't matter. Trump was impeached for the second time for that. Of course, found not guilty, but um, it's just so crazy the things that didn't matter and the things that did matter in this general election. And yeah, even crazier than that is everybody trying to figure out why what went wrong on the side of the Democrats and what are they out of touch and all of this stuff. And I just it's you can never know, or you should know the electorate at this point. Um, but maybe trotting out like Republicans like Liz Cheney and you know, really trying to attract Republican voters, you know, I'm going to tell you something, John. Republicans like to vote for Republicans. They don't. They don't often vote for Democrats, right? If they did, they'd be Democrats.
Right.
So it's just so funny to me. The whole campaign strategy that thought that they were going to capture enough of these voters to swing the election when it was pretty clear that that's not what people were voting on, right? Like this was like the vibes election. So it's been really interesting, I think, the last week watching everything just kind of fall apart. But there is some good news to come out of this. Watching the billionaire class, coalesce in the weeks ahead of the election and immediately after it, around Donald Trump was really, really striking. First, you had Patrick, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, my old boss, owner of the Los Angeles Times, killing their editorial board endorsement of Kamala Harris. Dr. Patrick, billionaire. And then you have, of course, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, doing the same thing to the Post's editorial endorsement. And then, immediately after the election, you just have all of these billionaires jumping on Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg, and just all of just, the real axis of evil jumping on and kissing the ring. And gosh, I don't think that newspaper endorsements sway elections. I don't think they matter. I love newspapers, don't get me wrong, but I actually am on the side of like, why are we doing this? Why are we endorsing candidates? But that's a decision you should make in February, not the week before the election. But the interjection of a billionaire to change that, it just this whole experiment of the next 4 years is going to be really interesting because he's already saying he's going to put Elon Musk into the government in some way, shape, or form. And if the way he's run Twitter is any indication, it's going to be pretty interesting. So that was my long-winded way of saying I am kicking Twitter officially, finally. Been talking about it on this very show. Last year we went through a whole thing when they took my blue check away and gave it to a bunch of shitheads. All of the worst people on Twitter now are verified and at the top of everyone's replies. And, watching Elon Musk, give pay $100 million of his own money to help, I can't do it anymore. Twitter's getting worse and worse by the day. People I like, people I follow are leaving, so I am leaving as well. I've already started to post on Blue Sky a lot more. Gained about 150 followers in the last 3 days. Just a lot of people are kind of making that decision. So I would encourage anyone who is hesitant or daunted by switching social platforms, please come to Blue Sky. I would really like to have the soccer community on Blue Sky that we had on Twitter. NBA Twitter, I wish it needs to migrate over to Blue Sky too. Like those are the only things that like I can't really get on Blue Sky anymore that is still on Twitter. A lot of journalists have come over. Blue Sky is great because they don't like links to outside websites are not throttled or hid. So like you can link to your news story and people will see it and they can read it. Anyway, so I've made a change. I'm being the change that I want to see in the world. I'm giving up on Twitter. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to delete my account entirely or just delete all my tweets. I have like 10,000 tweets. quite the record of 10 years of posting. But as soon as Twitter gives me my data, I'm going to delete all those tweets. I don't know if I'm going to leave the account up or not, but it's a big thing, So anyway, I'm speaking of billionaires, SDFC, of course, owned by a billionaire, a Tory billionaire from England. They are our new club playing in MLS. And we last week spoke. We were talking about recognition. I think we were a little bit down on things because of some delays in being recognized despite meeting all of these milestones. So last week we were texting and I was kind of spitballing some ideas, some ways to take, some of the stuff, maybe light some fires or whatever. And you seem to be kind of positive, like, hey, maybe not. I think things are switching in a good direction. Like, well, that was the last time we spoke. So here I am asking you in real time on our stream, how are things going now?
Well, I should be clear for anybody who might have missed the last episode where I announced I would not be continuing as president, and anybody who's watching on YouTube can see on the screen my tagline saying outgoing union president. So I'd like to reiterate that part a little bit and then answer your question. I will not be continuing with SDISU in 2025, mostly because of the time commitment and how much I would say with all the hurdles thrown up by the club and all the extra time that's committed, what was at least presented as, I went back and double checked it, I think it was like 6 to 10 hours a week for the president in 2024 was the expected time commitment. I would be happy if it was only 6 hours a day that I was putting in, and my post-COVID self can't do more than 4 to 6 hours a day. And there were some days in October I was putting in 8 to 10 to 12, which is what really set back my health as we were approaching that official recognition presentation. And the hurdles kept coming. It just, every time we thought we were getting to the end that I was kind of racing and pushing towards, it kept getting extended and delayed. And where we left it last time was the union was not officially recognized. There was no timetable for official recognition. And then you referenced the text we had back and forth, where some new information had come up after a meeting that happened the day after we last recorded a podcast, where there was some progress, and some dates set. So without giving away too much stuff, and again, I'm starting to be less and less in the loop in these conversations since I am actively transitioning out and helping transition other people to step up and take roles within the union to help things move forward smoothly. So the very last meeting I did not attend directly, so my information is not firsthand knowledge for once moving forward, and probably won't be my rest of the time here for this calendar year. But as we texted last week, there was a committed timetable, I would say, from the club about when certain things would happen. One of those being recognition, another thing being ticket sales. But still, as of today, and there should be another meeting with the club from union leadership and SG presidents will meet again with the club, and I think some people from the board as well. I've heard rumors that that's supposed to be the final meeting before decisions are made, but again, since I'm not sitting in on those meetings now, I don't know. I don't know what the plans and preparations are exactly for those meetings, but there are some timetables that have been put forward, but still nothing concrete. Still nothing finalized like it's actually happening. So one of those, I won't say what it is specifically, is supposed to be coming up very soon. So I hope for the union's sake and the people who are continuing on with the union that gets resolved at the Wednesday, it would be November 13th meeting between the union and the board. So things move forward smoothly. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in that process.
Okay. Are you going to be at that meeting?
No, I will not be at the meeting. I am not attending any more meetings with the club. Um, I am for two reasons. One, as I said, the transition of other people to step up and take leadership roles who are going to continue into 2025. But frankly, the reason that things I think got so bad on my end, health wise, and spending so much time is, and I will phrase it and take ownership of this because it's my interpretation, but of the really toxic and abusive relationship. There's some people that I just will not sit in a meeting with anymore. And that's from the club side. That's that's not from the union side. That's from the club side.
Oh, wow. So you're saying that, like, you're saying the relationship became toxic with the club and union leadership?
My interpretation, absolutely, yes.
Wow.
That is a huge reason. And in order to counter that, consistently counter that, has taken up did take up a tremendous amount of my time till I decided it was affecting my health, and it was it was too much. It wasn't worth the fight, and it really has left a sour taste in my mouth um, towards the club in general. But
It's
a
wild.
particular individual, but the fact that other people also from the club allowed that to continue, yeah, that was a huge thing. And it's there's, to be fair, I would say there's a lot of people within the union leadership who don't share my views. I think that would be a fair assessment. And those, I would say we had different end goals for the union and what it could, and you could argue should be, depending on your position. Um, so part of that was also looking at how much how much energy and time was I willing to spend when I already knew the health stuff I was already dealing with before some key events happened that were going to probably extend my time even more if I wanted to, I don't know if you phrase it, keep up the good fight, kind of thing, in terms of trying to keep the union strong. And again, my phrasing only of not letting the club take advantage of the union.
Well, that's incredibly disappointing. I've worked, for two, major media companies in San Diego, major for San Diego, right? And one thing that we've had is people from, like, I can't remember the official name, the Center for Conflict Resolution or whatever. It's basically communications, like, seminars where, like, the company brings in a person who is like an expert in, like, opening communication channels when there's conflict present. And it's all about, I mean, maybe it's a little bit DEI-ish. You know, I think it comes from respecting people's culture and backgrounds and people coming at issues from different places. But that's, I think, where that part of it comes from. But it's pretty standard in the corporate world to be exposed to training on communication and effectively communicating and respectfully communicating, and for that to not be happening, for there to be these breakdowns in communication between a $500 million expansion team backed by a billionaire, and the volunteers performing an incredible amount of free labor for that $100 million organization and its billionaire owner is incredibly disappointing. This kind of goes back to some stuff that I said on our last show, where this all just boils down, from where I sit, to a lack of respect, where the supporters are not really respected, they're expected. The club expects you to show up, expects you to do the work, and expects you to do what they say. But they don't respect what you do. They don't respect what you say, and they don't respect the decisions that you make, or the time that you spend performing all of this free labor for them. So it's tough for me because obviously I stepped back several months ago and carry a little bit of guilt because I feel like I left you alone to fight that good fight. But um, you know if this supporters union is going to be dominated by a bunch of yes men and people who just want to please the club, people who don't want to stand up for the union or supporters or their members. They just want to get those cheaper tickets. They just want to get in the door at all costs. That's the soccer community in San Diego deserves much better than that, and it's a shame that type of perspective or outlook or it seems to be the winning formula for what's left with the union. Now, I don't know this for a fact. I know that there are people who think like you and I do, but it's incredibly disappointing, and didn't have to be this way at all.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that in a second. We did have a comment, and I just wanted to pull this up because we did have a comment in the chat. And for anybody, because I think we assume a lot of times, because we have a lot of people who've listened for many, many episodes, that they know what we're talking about, and we maybe have danced around this a little bit, or maybe not has been as clear. But the club we're talking about is SDFC in Major League Soccer, so San Diego Football Club. And the union is the Independent Supporters Union, the group that will be filling up the north end of Snapdragon Stadium, which would be sections 136 through 140, the field level behind the goal, and hopefully with all supporters, but a variety of different supporter groups, members of each of those supporter groups coming together to make a union. So that's what we're talking about specifically here. To go kind of to what you were saying, I'm not going to tell anybody how to fan. And certainly when you create any kind of union with multiple supporter groups that have slightly different views internally, even within each group of how to be a supporter, because they each have a slightly different focus. That's what attracts different people to different groups. I was more concerned, and frankly, it took other people to point it out to me, and then for me to really recognize it more. It was no different than being in an abusive relationship. And you have a lot of people. I think what was more disappointing to me is that people who I think are very good in lots of different ways and will be excellent supporters, but will say things like, it will get better when, or just give it a few more weeks. And it's just like, I was sharing some of my problems, frustrations, I guess I was having. And I had a couple people totally neutral to soccer and everything else, but have experience in other places. And they're like, you're describing an abusive relationship, and I sat back, I'm like, yeah, I totally am. This is like the threats, the willing to take things away, from the club standpoint, here's what you need to do, and the union does it, but oh wait, you need to do something else. And then I think more the frustration was a lack of what the club was doing, because I was more aware of this, I think, I would say easily 2 months ago, and really started pushing back on it. But how many people, to me, I felt in the union, as I was even sharing some of these things, who shared the language of an abuser, like, yes, but, but they do this kind of stuff for us, so we need to do this. And, things will get better when, or nobody's going to remember
drinking,
this.
Things will get better when.
Right.
I mean, shouldn't joke about that.
But this part's good, and it's kind of goes back to what you said, the lack of respect, you know, it wasn't until 9 days after the official recognition presentation that we finally got any word from the club of what our standing was. But not because anybody from the club contacted us. It's because we kind of pestered the club and tried to pin them down until we finally, got answers that no, we're not recognized. And at that point, there was no timetable. And there's just, this constant, again, my phrasing, stringing along of this official recognition process that really should have been wrapped up 6 weeks ago. The postponing of the ticket sales, the what feels like a new hurdle almost every week, and after you solve a hurdle or you finish something new gets placed in front. It is not I think the club likes to throw around cooperation and collaboration a lot as words, but it certainly hasn't been that. I would say the union has gone above and beyond to try to meet the things that the club has asked for, which for the most part are not necessarily unreasonable things in the grand scheme of working together and trying to get what you want to do as supporters in the section, because you want to have that good relationship with the club. But the fact that you think you're on the right track, and then when you do it, like, oh, but wait, there's more. Like there's something else again.
So you're saying that Lucy was abusing Charlie Brown when she kept pulling the football out when he came to kick it? That was an abusive relationship?
For people who maybe don't like the abuse analogy, that is probably an incredibly apt analogy as well. Yeah, that's the union is Charlie Brown.
Okay,
trying to do the right thing and trying to make it right.
So one thing, this conversation, and this may surprise our audience. Well, if you've been with us for a long time, it probably doesn't, but we don't do a whole lot of show prep. But this kind of presents like an existential threat to this show because, the whole idea is that we're talking to union members, we're talking to supporters in San Diego. At one point, we were both involved. Once I dropped, you were the president, so it still made sense. But with you stepping back and me not being involved, without that insight, inside the room like perspective, we're not going to have a lot to offer an audience as it pertains to like supporter stuff with this club. What are you thinking about? Well, I think it's important that if this show is winding down, that I do want to, and the comment that we had, I want to reiterate just some of the stuff that we're talking about here with specifics, because again, I don't think it's clear. SDFC, the union supporting SDFC was formed by 7 supporter groups that got together, the original 7, the Magnificent 7. And the first decision that these 7 groups made together was what to name the union, La Raza de San Diego. Now, SDFC has spent months pandering to San Diego's Latino community with events in the South Bay. And when they announced their first big signing, Chucky Lozano, a Mexican national team player, at a Spanish language event at Brady Shell, the club, through back channels, came to the leaders of supporter groups and asked them not to have any signs that said La Raza at the event. Something that was agreed to. The decision was pretty recent at that time, and okay, whatever. But like looking back, like that was the key moment when the union back down on publicly calling itself what it decided to call itself at the club's request. That should have been like an aha moment, I think, for everybody, that we were not in a symbiotic relationship with the club. We were in an adversarial relationship with them. Um, After several weeks, the union signaled that it intended to keep the name La Raza de San Diego, and was told again through back channels, not on the record by the club, that the union would never be recognized, calling itself La Raza. So all of this time publicly, SDFC continues to pander to the Latino community in San Diego, all the while telling its largely Latino supporter union, you can't call yourself La Raza. Now, to me, because I kind of just have this like psychotic mental illness where, like, when things are like unfair or unjust, I can't get over it. I couldn't believe that, one, that they did that, and two, that more people weren't upset about it. Like the name, hate the name. The club's action toward the supporters was beyond the pale, in my opinion. But it was when the other leaders in the union, other supporter group leaders, decided to change the name that they had selected because it wasn't worth fighting. That's when I left. I like to fight, and I thought that was a fight worth having. But listen, I made my case. I pled my case in the Discord, in our public meeting, and if you don't convince people to see things your way, you lose. Kamala, you lose. And if people want to just be told what to do, be told what to call themselves, be told when and where to perform, then they can do that. And it's just this. I think this was July that we're talking about, so this is like several months ago. And the intervening time, the union leadership has been pushing toward this recognition goal, incorporating, getting the nonprofit stuff set up, getting accounting set up, websites, social handles, all of the background labor that it takes to do this. And all the while, club representatives kind of moving the goalposts every time a milestone's hit. So when we talk about an abusive relationship or disrespect, like, we're not just talking about like a disagreement at a meeting, right? We are talking about a pattern of behavior over months, that is just listen, man, I hate to be corporate guy, but it's straight up unprofessional, from a major sports organization, a major league sports front office, to conduct itself in this way, putting one face on in public, and then when nobody's looking, treating their supporters with so little respect. So it's incredibly disappointing. And I certainly understand why you no longer want to be part of it.
It is disappointing, and it is a pattern of behavior. And again, I would say primarily from a particular individual, but other people are aware of it too, and things haven't really changed. And it's, again, I want to be absolutely clear. There are probably a bunch of union leaders, if you ask them right now or listening to this, that will not agree with what I'm saying. I think it's an abusive relationship. I think people are being treated unfairly. I think union members are being asked to do unreasonable things on behalf of the club. I think there's an awful lot of other people in the union who would say it's par for the course. This is what we need to do to be able to get in the section. And ultimately, I mean, I don't want to mislead people, because some people where I've had another conversation said, well, I thought you said it was because of your health. Well, it is fundamentally because of my health, because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep, you know, the time and attention it takes to try to push back on these things that I think are severely undermining the integrity of the union long term, in order to get a short term benefit of really of I would argue a minor benefit to the union, but a major benefit to the club. Um, I just I my body can't keep up with where I want to desire to be in those conversations and lend my voice to try to help shape things. So, I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is I just can't physically do it. Um, so I have to pull back, but part of that pulling back is it's also, I would say, for as bullish. I mean, I went through the whole roller coaster of, I wasn't sure about this team in the beginning, but I was willing to give it a shot, to probably in the spring, where I got to see things on the inside and started to become, I think you'll remember, quite bullish on the people who they've hired and who what they were doing in the community, and like some of the work. But when it really came to working with supporters, and whether the supporters were going to have an organic voice in how the supporter section run, or if it was going to be dictated to them more by the club, it definitely moved towards the latter. And I wouldn't say I was the only voice pushing back against that, but I would say that was a minority view. And also, I mean, another reason for shifting on my end is, if this is where the majority of the people want to go, they want to, again, my phrasing, be there at any cost, on match day one, home match day, right? To be there in that section. Um, that's not really the environment that a supporter group kind of section that I want to be a part of. Let me rephrase that. Not that I want to be a part of. I know that I can't, because I would want to lend my voice still to push back on things that I think should be changed. And I just, I can't, my body can't keep up with where I want to be. And I know that. And the only way for me to move forward a little more safely for my health is, I have to remove myself from the situation, because I can't just be part of the union and just kind of sit back and watch things. That's just not me. I'd want to say something, um, and then I'd want to get more involved, and then I'd be right back in the same situation again, and probably being more and more involved and taking up more time, and then having health issues again. So the solution for me is to just step back and remove myself from everything. And I wish everybody else in the union the best of luck. I hope they fill the section. I hope it meets their expectations. But the writing on the wall that I'm seeing is, it's not going to be what I thought we could be. That's probably the best way to phrase it. I was really hoping we could have a stronger union that represents San Diego and really is connected with our community a little better. I hope it becomes that. I hope I'm wrong completely about it, and that is what they become. But I also was hoping this supporters group and union would help hold the club accountable when they start deviating from some of the things they said they would do in terms of representing the community. And right
Well,
now,
it
I
takes
don't see
backbone
that.
to hold people accountable. It takes a little bit of backbone.
Yeah. So I just, and I'd be willing to keep lending my voice to that if I knew I could physically keep up with it.
Well, yeah. So I don't know where we go from here on the show. I don't know um, if tuning in week after week to hear us bitch about this club is the
You're
most
probably not the best.
successful format going forward for a show. But I will say that it didn't. It wasn't always like this, and it didn't have to be this. But we're not going to sugarcoat or be deceptive. We've been here for years through San Diego Loyal. We never gave Loyal a pass on anything. Whatever there was to discuss, we discussed it, and whatever there was to be called out, we called it out. And that was the same tack we took with SDFC, even as we're in the room trying to make things happen. So you're not going to get anything but the unvarnished truth. There are other podcasts, SDFC Fancast, which I've never listened to, but it exists. I see it on Instagram. Fancast. So you want, a different perspective, perhaps people who like the club, maybe that's the place to go. I don't know. I have a hard time uncritically supporting anything, right? Like I had to, I was a Cowboys fan for a long time. I had to quit following the NFL because morally my conscience would not allow me to continue to watch a sport that destroys people with no regard for their health and well-being. Everything with concussions and the Ray Rice thing, the elevator video, like that's when I left NFL fandom. And once again, I have this mental illness where there's right and there's wrong, and if something's wrong, I can't abide it. I just cannot abide it. And that goes to whatever sports teams I may or may not be interested in following or supporting. So that's not everybody. Some people can. Some people don't care. Some people love Tom Brady. Some people love these, whatever. No matter how vile or evil these owners, these billionaires are, you kind of pinch your nose and you swallow it. But you don't have to. You can opt out. That is an option. Just because the only outdoor professional men's soccer product on offer in San Diego is now this, you can opt out. You don't have to. You don't have to support it. You don't have to be okay with any of this. If you choose to support it, I think you should go in with both eyes open and know exactly what you're supporting. Every time I get going on one of these negativity black holes, I do think Right to Dream is a good thing. I do think that this academy that they're going to build, that they're building here, is a net positive for soccer in San Diego, especially for the youth and development. I think it's a great thing. I think that's the best thing that this club is bringing here. They can keep Snapdragon, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw the clips from, I think, let's pivot a little bit to the home field of SDFC, Snapdragon Stadium.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that it beautifully, like if you wanted to look for an example of local San Diego politics, local San Diego power brokers, the confluence of what that looks like, right? SDFC, Snapdragon Stadium, is like the perfect example of the powers combining to create something terrible. Because that field, during San Diego State's football game on Saturday, that field looked like dog shit. Did you see the pictures of the field?
I had seen a couple pictures and clips and the dust flying up, and
oh my, I have never seen. I mean, we watch USL. We watch USL soccer, okay? We saw where Oakland Roots was playing a few years ago on green carpet. It looked like one of those fields they were at, like with lumps in it and stuff. I've never seen anything as bad as the field at Snapdragon. And this is not just now. Somebody from Snapdragon told the UT that this was because of the volume of use at the stadium. There's a bunch of teams playing there. It's hard to maintain the field. Sure. I'm sure that's true. But it's always been bad. The field's been bad the whole time. Ever since the stadium opened, it's been bad. It was bad whenever I went and saw the Gold Cup match. It looked bad when we went and watched Loyal play Dortmund. It looked bad when we went and saw the Wave. It's always looked bad. And is this because of it's just always had a lot of teams playing on it? I don't know. I'm not like a turf technician, you know, but I think you should hire one because whoever you got now, I don't know. I'm definitely stepping outside of my field of expertise here, but you know, these are the powers that got together to bring SDFC here in the first place, and it's going to be real interesting. Gosh, you remember last year in the NWSL Championship was played at Snapdragon Stadium, and it still had the paint on the field from San Diego State football.
Right. Yeah.
During the NWSL Championship match. You know, cool stadium. Good job, everyone. Good job. It's what just tack it to the wall, add it to the list of things that you need to figure out. But what did you think about the field?
Well, I mean, it was awful. There's no way
not to mention
get
the Wave
around.
had to move their game a
Yeah.
week ago. The Wave also moved the
Right.
game across the country because they refused to play there.
And had been fined for multiple games, I believe, before that because of poor field conditions. So yeah, it's horrible. I know, and I saw the statements that Snapdragon put out, I don't know, a couple weeks ago now it feels like, but something about the aesthetics, you know, people not liking the aesthetics or some kind of comment along those lines, and just a bunch of I remember reading it to my wife and she's like, what did they, there was a bunch of nonsense. Like the whole statement had a bunch of big words that didn't really say anything. um it is concerning. I know that within some back channels between the union leaders and SDFC, there were certainly some concerns saying, hey, what's the deal? They're saying too much use by teams, and SDFC hasn't even started playing yet. And there was assurances by SDFC that they're aware of it and they are already working on solutions to help along with, which I don't know what all of them are, but I'm guessing it could be things like replacing the sod entirely, you know, multiple times a year kind of thing to keep up with all the use. So, you know, when there's a defined break that nobody's there where you could get in and lay new sod. But I don't know what that cost is, and I don't know who's paying for that and how that works out, or if that ends up meaning somebody's going to have to leave and go somewhere else. You know, you've got rugby there, you've got the Wave, you've got Aztec football, you've got all the other events that they're doing.
Nowhere to go.
Whenever there's open dates. Right. And we don't have anywhere else. And anytime anybody brings up a stadium in San Diego, like, why do we need another stadium? We just built a brand new stadium. But that stadium's already packed with events. I mean, there would be more events if there was another equivalent kind of venue to play in, and you know, you didn't have to beat up the field. My fear in the long run is they switch to turf, you know, synthetic turf, and it just, because they can't keep up with a grass field there. And I think that would be a shame for soccer, especially if they end up going to a turf field.
Well, you know, somehow hundreds of clubs around the world manage to maintain grass fields. Somehow the NFL maintains grass fields. Somehow college stadiums across the country maintain grass fields. I don't think that this is the art of the impossible here. I know that we live in a drier area, but guess what? I mean, we go to play youth soccer in Arizona, and the fields are better there than they are here. I mean, maybe Arizona doesn't care about wasting water or something, but I'm just saying it's no excuse. Climate's not an excuse for the field conditions. It's embarrassing, and it reflects pretty poorly on your $200 million stadium that the only thing you're known for is being miserable in the sun and your field looking like shit all the time. and teams refusing to play on it. Like, is the stadium known for anything other than that at this point?
Well, it's probably more well known in more circles because of those things. Yeah. I mean, if you really spread it all the way out across the country, like, oh, yeah, I mean, I've been someplace, oh, I've heard of that stadium. Like, oh, yeah, you guys have that stadium. They get that with no shade, you know, and they don't know anything about San Diego or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes the news and makes the rounds. And clearly, again, we always lament the fact that there's no shade in terms of the acoustic and environmental aspects for a soccer game, but even some shade around that bowl and on the sun's position at different times of the day, the grass would not be getting the same level of exposure to the sun. Uh, Probably would have held up a little bit better as well. So, but again, as you said, getting into groundskeeping, not my wheelhouse. So I probably should stay out of that conversation. Other than the fact that we see it around the world that it can be done better, it ought to be done better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would imagine that the people at San Diego State are also none too happy about it. I can't imagine John
Yeah.
David Wicker is like, oh yeah, man, I love playing in the sand. I doubt that. I doubt that. But I have not spoken with him, but I doubt it very much that everybody's happy about the situation. Well, John,
Yeah.
so we've come to a stopping point. I think we need to jump off the stream and put this one to bed. Is there anything that we didn't talk about or anything coming up that people should know about?
Uh, Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head, but always be sure to check the union website and socials. And if you're a member, get on the Discord for different events that are coming up because there are drum circles happening at different times, and there's a whole bunch of events that will be coming up for those who are very excited about the team. I don't want to forget we do have people who are very excited about the team that are coming. There's going to be a huge amount of things happening in December that will probably get a lot of people very excited about what's coming up with the team in 2025. So a couple of things we might hear in the next couple of weeks. I guess probably depends how the meeting goes tomorrow, but in the next couple of weeks, hopefully some news. But December should be packed with big news and big events to start getting ready for 2025. So be on the lookout for that.
All right. Well, we will see you again next week, and we'll have the latest for you then. Thanks so much, everyone.
All right. Good night.